Iceland, the land of fire and ice, which you may have known. But did you also know that the people of Iceland are super friendly? It's true. It may be as cold as ice, but their hearts are warm as lava. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. In this video, I'm going to take you on my 48-hour journey in Iceland, tell you my favorite activities, what you should plan for, some important tips for seeing the Northern Lights, what driving in Iceland is like, and so much more. Iceland blew me away, so let me tell you what I learned about this magical land. First, let's cover traveling to and from Iceland. Did you know that Iceland is one of the least expensive European countries to fly to from the US? Sometimes you can even find flights for $200 round trip. It is only about a 6-hour plane ride from certain East Coast US cities, and if you're already in Europe, you can find crazy cheap deals for a hop over to Iceland. I booked my one-way ticket from Valencia, Spain to Reykjavik, Iceland for just 50 US dollars, and I would imagine that you can find many other deals for even less. This is, of course, with budget airlines. Some airlines to check from Europe are EasyJet and Ryanair. On my way home from Iceland, I flew with a budget airline called Play. Now, we're talking basics. It's not fancy, but it gets the job done, and I flew home to Florida for just $200. Okay, once you get to Iceland, I'd personally recommend renting a car. I use the search engine to find all of my flights and rental cars. Be sure to check out the link in my bio if you want to search for these same crazy awesome deals. The car rental that came up on my search with the best deal was through Ice Rental Cars. It's an Icelandic company, and my experience with them was fantastic. Most of the rental car companies have offices just outside the airport, and there is a shuttle that you can take which runs every 15 to 20 minutes. Pro tip, if you don't want to wait for the shuttle and only have light luggage, the walk to any of the car rental offices is only about 5 minutes. The guy that I worked with at the counter let me know about some important tips for driving in Iceland. First of all, they always drive with their lights on, no matter day or night. Next, he let me know that the maximum speed limit in Iceland is 90 kilometers per hour, and in the city it is usually between 30 and 50. He explained that when it gets windy, you need to be careful opening the doors of your car, and that it can be helpful to park near a building to help block the wind. He explained that throughout Iceland, speeding and parking tickets are given electronically. There is an app you can use to pay for parking in certain parking lots, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. I didn't end up using that kind of parking, but just something to be aware of. In addition to any ticket fines, you have to pay an administrative fee to the car rental company on top of each ticket, and it's not cheap. Just be sure to watch your speed and pay attention to parking signs, and I'm sure you'll be just fine. If you're not wanting to add additional insurance, which I never want to add, you have to have at least $2,000 of space to be held on your credit card with that specific rental car company. Oh, just so you know, my 48-hour rental was only $60.76. Okay, enough with the driving talk. Let's get off the road and get to accommodations. I spent a lot of time looking at hotels and Airbnb options. I generally prefer an Airbnb, but for a short trip, sometimes a hotel stay is just easier. In Iceland, I ended up landing on something kind of in the middle. I booked a room at Freyja Guest House and Suites. It had really good reviews and was $111 per night, bringing my total stay for 2 nights with tax to $248.40. Accommodations are just one of those things in Iceland that you're not going to find for dirt cheap. That may not seem like much to some, but I've stayed in some countries where that amount of money would pay for almost a month of private accommodations. One mistake I made was that I thought I booked a room with a private bathroom, and that was wrong. It was a house with 3 or 4 rooms on each floor and a shared bathroom on each floor. I do believe they have 1 or 2 suites that have private bathrooms as well. In spite of the shared bathroom, it was an incredible stay, and sharing a bathroom didn't really turn out to be a nuisance at all. It was spotless clean. The room was beautifully laid out and very comfortable, and there was a shared kitchen with coffee, tea, a cake to snack on, and the owner provided daily fruit smoothies that were delicious. I would happily stay there again. It's about the same price as some of the 3 and 4-star hotels. You just have to know what's best for you. Most of the Airbnb locations I found to be just slightly more expensive. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about what to do in Iceland, especially if you have limited time. I had 3 main things on my list for this trip: Northern Lights, thermal pool, and lava. Fortunately, I was able to check all of those things off the list in one way or another, and got to do even more than I expected. After arriving late afternoon on a Wednesday and getting checked into the guest house, my friend and I were looking for great dinner options. We ended up heading to Reykjavik Kitchen, an Icelandic restaurant that is family owned and run. I would definitely recommend stopping here for a lovely meal. The flavor in these dishes was phenomenal. The atmosphere was elevated and cozy, and the staff was outstanding. The manager made his way around the restaurant to every table multiple times, had great wit, and really made it such an inviting experience. With only 2 nights in Iceland, I was constantly looking at the weather forecast to see when it would be best to hunt for northern lights. I knew we'd need to get outside of the city, so after studying the map, I found Thingvellir National Park, which is only about a 35-minute drive from where we were staying. I wish I had learned about this park sooner because I really want to go there in the daytime. This is a location where you can literally climb on top of the tectonic plates. I've seen that they also have snorkeling tours, but I'd imagine you'd want to do that in the summer. Anyhow, we made the late night drive out to the park only to find that there were clouds everywhere. It took almost an hour to get there just because I was driving slowly due to the road conditions. So back to the guest house we went for a little sleep before hitting the ground running the next morning. I'm telling this story in chronological order, so I'll get back to the Northern Lights in a minute and explain some tips that really helped us to discover how to see them. Our one full day in Iceland began by setting off for Sky Lagoon, where we had booked a couple of days prior. The thermal pools in Iceland are a really popular activity for tourists. The Blue Lagoon is the most famous, and we had tickets for that. But a few days beforehand, we received an email that the Blue Lagoon would be closed due to volcanic activity. I'm not sure if you've been following the most recent news about an imminent eruption in Iceland, but the town that was evacuated is really close to the Blue Lagoon. We actually saw the town from the air while flying into Iceland, and it's pretty crazy to see it completely at a halt with no humans, cars, or boats. Anyway, off to Sky Lagoon I went. It was a really cool experience. I brought slides to wear in the changing rooms, but shoes are not allowed at all. The changing rooms were beautiful and well equipped. You're given a wristband that will open and close whatever locker you choose. There's also a bar in the water, so you're able to order drinks if you like. We opted to do just the basic time in the thermal pools, but they do have more extensive packages if you prefer. I met a woman there who said she'd also been to Blue Lagoon, which is far more famous and quite a bit larger, I believe, but she prefers Sky Lagoon. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Sky Lagoon is a bit newer. I noticed a large crane in the background fairly close to the side of Sky Lagoon, so it's my guess that they are expanding. They have a cute little cafe and gift shop as well if you want to have a meal while you are there. Once we left, we decided to go back to our guest house, change, and head out to see more of the city of Reykjavik. Our guest house was positioned right next to the famous church in Reykjavik. When I first saw the church, I thought it looked so much more modern than many churches you see throughout Europe. I googled what the primary religion is in Iceland, and as it turns out, about 80% of the people in Iceland are members of the Lutheran Church, which is a Christian Protestant denomination. Anyhow, I didn't go inside, but the church from the exterior is a sight to behold. Directly facing the church is the most adorable little street with shops and restaurants that are super cute. You can tell that the area is really set up for tourists. From there, we decided to walk down to the seaside to grab a few quick photos and see the Sun Voyager, a stainless steel sculpture. If I'm being honest, I was being a big baby. It was freezing, and I thought I wore my warmest clothes, but they just weren't set up for this temperature, especially with the wind. All I wanted to do was sit inside and eat warm food. So that's what we did next. We opted for an English pub that serves fish stew, also called fish pie. I'd been wanting to try it after seeing it on a few menus. It's mashed potato with cheese and fish all combined together with some sort of cream. Very hearty and great for cold weather days. While we were there, we met new friends, and one of them was Linda, who is from Iceland, and she shared with us all about her family history, being one of the first 3 families to settle there. And we got to listen to her dad on Spotify, who is a famous Icelandic singer and musician. She was nice enough to tell us what we should do next, and even dropped us off there at Over Iceland. Remember how I said that people in Iceland were super friendly? I really mean it. So, what is Over Iceland? Well, If you've ever been to Epcot at Disney World and had the chance to ride Soarin', one of my favorite rides, well, this is very similar, only it's twice as long as Soarin', which is good since you're going just for this one ride. The whole experience is 35 minutes and includes two different pre-show experiences where you get to learn a bit about the history of Iceland and hear some magical tales. The ride itself is 8.5 minutes long and is well worth the visit because you'll get to see parts of Iceland come alive that you wouldn't get to see otherwise. One thing I noticed were the fireworks at one point in the experience. I remember the manager from Reykjavik Kitchen telling us how spectacular the New Year's Eve celebration is in Reykjavik, and when I saw it on the Flyover Iceland ride, I was blown away. Iceland is definitely on my list now for New Year's at some point. Well, after we finished there, we decided to take an Uber back to the guest house. We could have taken our car for all of these options, we just didn't realize where the day would be taking us. I was checking the weather again for northern lights, and it seemed that the only time it would be clear at the national park was between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So we decided to go to sleep early and then wake up at 2 a.m. to head out to the park. The weather was much more clear and it was so much easier to drive, so we were fully in place by 3 a.m. On a clear night, the entire drive was really stunning. We finally pull over at some little spot and we see absolutely nothing. I realized that I hadn't done any research on what to look for or how long the lights show up for. So I Google it, and one of the first tips was something I didn't even think of but was so obvious. For the northern lights, look to the north. So we moved the car to where our windshield was facing north. We sat for a few minutes, still nothing. I rolled down my window and noticed what looked like thin gray clouds. I was bummed because the last thing we needed was clouds. As I sat and stared at them, I thought the movement seemed really strange. I had never seen clouds move like that before. I have a pretty good camera on my Samsung Galaxy 22 Ultra and it takes good night photos, so I pulled my camera out to take a photo of the clouds. But it wasn't clouds at all. It was northern lights. My eyes could only see gray, but my camera could see the green of the lights. For the next hour, my friend and I had our phones out, sometimes getting out of the car and sometimes taking photos with just the windows rolled down because it was freezing. The lights moved all around and really gave us a show. I know a lot of you may be iPhone users, so let me just tell you the difference in what you can capture. My phone, the Samsung, by far did best at capturing photos, but my friend's iPhone caught really cool time lapses that my phone couldn't catch. It was a really amazing experience, and I'm so glad we got up in the middle of the night for it. I wish we had seen the lights in all of their colors, but I'm grateful for what we did see. Speaking to our flight attendant on the way home, he was really surprised that we were able to see the lights on just a 48-hour stay. He said that at times it can be really difficult because you need several different things to line up on the same evening. Well, after just a few more hours of sleep, we got up to drive about an hour to see the lava tunnel. We booked a tour in advance, which you have to do if you want to go inside. We showed up about 15 minutes late and they were awesome, putting us on another tour that started just another 15 minutes later. The lava tunnel is from an eruption 5,000 years ago, which they said is relatively young. It was cool to learn about the geology, see the various colors that are derived from different minerals, and our guide Mike was particularly funny and engaging. So we did it. Northern lights, thermal pools, and lava. Let me tell you, the land of fire and ice did not disappoint. I can't wait to go back. This would be an incredible place to rent a camper van and explore. I might prefer that in the summer months though, but then you wouldn't get the northern lights. Have you ever been to Iceland? If you have recommendations that I didn't mention, be sure to let me know. I'll be going back for sure. Listen, I really appreciate you watching and would love for you to like this video and subscribe to join me every day where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.